Did it work? Yes, hopefully. Okay, let me share my screen straight away then. I'm just going to play something. Hopefully the audio works. Hopefully my audio works. Hopefully the audio coming through here also works. Fitness in 100 words. This popped into my mind today. I had to go looking for this. I forgot where it came from. This is when the app Sora became available in America and people started using it to, I guess, create content that was of people who are no longer with us, saying things or doing things that never really happened, for lack of a better way to describe it. So I'll just play this.
Eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch and no sugar.
Keep intake to levels that will support exercise, but not body fat.
Practice and train major lifts, deadlifts, cleans, squats, presses, clean and jerk, and snatch.
Similarly, master the basics of gymnastics. Pull-ups, dips, rope climbs, and happy little push-ups.
Crikey, mate. Sit-ups, presses to handstand, pirouettes, flips, splits, and hold.
Bike, run, row, swim, etc. Hard and fast.
5 or 6 days per week, mix these elements in as many combinations and patterns as creativity will allow.
Routine is the enemy. Keep workout short and intense, and regularly learn and play new sports.
So that did the rounds, what's 16 weeks ago? 4 months ago. It's February now. So what does that place it at? September, roughly? If you've never heard that line of words before, you've probably never heard of fitness in 100 words, or as it was originally described, world-class fitness in 100 words. Let me just find the right tab here. Share this instead, which is what you can see on the screen right now. So fitness in 100 words. This came out in a journal article in 2002 written by Greg Glassman in regards to, I guess, a summary of fitness in 100 words, or what was perceived by CrossFit as being fitness in 100 words. So eat meat, vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar. Keep intake to levels that will support exercise but not body fat. Practice and train major lifts, deadlift, clean, squat, presses, clean and jerk, and snatch. Similarly, master the basics of gymnastics, pull-ups, dips, rope climb, push-ups, sit-ups, presses to handstand, pirouettes, flips, splits, and holds. Bike, run, swim, row, etc., hard and fast, 5 or 6 days per week. Mix these elements in as many combinations and patterns as creativity will allow. Routine is the enemy. Keep workouts short and intense. Regularly learn and play new sports. So that came out in a journal article, 2002, 2026, 24 years ago, which is quite some time ago now when you really think about it. And it was written, share this tab instead, in the What is Fitness Journal article, and you can see down here it's just a side part to it. The interesting thing, let me zoom in here. The interesting thing is that first 2 sentences, world-class fitness in 100 words, or fitness in 100 words, eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar. Keep intake to levels that will support exercise but not body fat. It's quite simple in terms of the prescription that it is. And the opening lines of fitness in 100 words are actually to do with what you eat and how you eat, more so than the exercise you do. I guess the question today is, why is that? Or how can it be so simple but not necessarily easy? Share this tab as well. Again, another one for you to look at. It's the same thing again. This one very nutrition specific. This is a poster: eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar. And then down the bottom, fitness in 100 words. The 100 words are there with that same opening sentence followed by the keep intakes to levels that will support exercise, but not body fat. So I titled this one today. If you are watching and you want to comment in the chat, it'd be nice to say hello to you. I titled this one today, Nutrition. It's simple, but not necessarily easy. Because when you see something like that written out, it does sound very simple. Eat meat and vegetables, eat nuts and seeds, eat some fruit, eat little starch, and no sugar. And it is quite simple to think about it in that way. But what happens to us when, I guess, we fall into poorer eating habits or we lose track of the basics? And I guess that's where it comes into play, where it's not necessarily easy, but it always has been and always will be simple. I guess I appreciate it, Justin. Justin's here in the chat. Hello, thanks for joining me. Thanks for commenting. Don't forget to give the video a like. All right, talking about nutrition, it's simple, not easy. Now, in one of the other lives, I was talking about balanced food and avoiding binging eating at the end of the day. So I guess maybe to open up to start with, where is my tab? I can't find what I'm looking for. I'll just had a couple of questions. I thought we'll just open up with that, answering people's questions. First one, I'll put it in the chat. What would you normally eat before and after doing a CrossFit session? So I guess for me, it depends on the time of the day that I'm exercising. Generally speaking, if I do a workout at 9:30, I will have had a balanced-ish breakfast within an hour before going to class, and maybe within half an hour of going to class, I'll have a banana before I go. If I was exercising, say, at 6 a.m., it's a little harder to have a full meal before exercising at 6 a.m. because it would require me to get up a lot earlier than I already do. And so if it was 6 a.m. and that I was going to class, I might just have a banana before I exercise that day. Now, it depends on whether your focus is performance generally or whether it's just general health as to whether or not eating before exercise is going to be priority for you, I guess I would say. So not beneficial or not necessarily useful, because having some energy before you exercise is definitely both of those things, beneficial and useful. But what's simple, what's easy, and what's your priority? If performance is your goal, then eating before you exercise is going to support in your performance. If you don't mind so much about, what's the best way to say this? If your goal is just general health, longevity, consistency, day to day, then it's probably less essential if you're training at 6 a.m. or even 7 a.m. for some people to prioritize eating before you train. Not because it's not good for you, but just because, hey, what's easy for you to do, or what's simple for you to do, or what can you do consistently? So it would be So it would be an easier discussion to have with someone who maybe could go backwards and forwards with, I don't like eating before I exercise first thing in the morning. Okay, are you worried about your performance? Are you trying to maximize that 1% of your performance? And if that's the case, then we'd be looking at ways for you to prioritize having some sort of carb prior to eating. If you're just in it for longevity and getting up and going to the gym is the best thing that you can do for that day, having to eat beforehand is not necessarily a priority for you. Just the consistency of turning up to the gym, exercising fasted, which is what you would be first thing in the morning, is not going to diminish your gains. It will just potentially progress you slightly slower than what you would if you could maximize eating prior to training. Hello, Matt. Thanks for listening. If you've got any nutrition-related questions, please feel free to comment them in. So going back to that question, what would you normally eat before and after doing a CrossFit session? I would just try, if I'm exercising first thing in the morning, I would try and eat a banana. I know that works for me. Some people, it doesn't work for them. Some people might prefer to have 1 or 2 dates just as a way to get something in their body without it feeling like they're eating food. Other people would use juice as a way to get a quick hit of quick release carbs prior to training. But as I just said, it's not the end of the world if you don't eat before you train, and whatever works best for you, trial and error, you'll find out. Now, with that in mind, when I exercise at that 9:30 class, I will still wake up quite early, and I will still eat a meal prior to exercising. And then I generally try and have that banana beforehand just because it helps me feel like I've got a little bit more energy in my body when it comes to pushing, so intensity in the workout itself. If you're training later in the day, generally speaking, you probably had a few meals. Let's use 5 p.m. as an example. If you've had lunch at 12 p.m. and you're going to the 5 p.m. class, then what I would say is try and have something. If you can't eat a meal, a balanced meal, carbs, fat, and protein at around that 3 p.m. range. Doesn't have to be a massive meal, but just a balanced meal that gives you something since lunch before working out, 1 to 2 hours prior. If you're unable to do that, then something that is a little bit more carb focused prior to exercising at 5 p.m. My guidance for you, I wouldn't necessarily say concern, but maybe so much my guidance for you would be, don't leave yourself with an empty tank from eating, say, at 12 o'clock and then 5 hours has passed, but you've been quite active through the day, brain's been working, you've been moving around, to then try and get into a workout where you need to be able to access a fuel source when you get there to be able to apply effort. Don't leave yourself with nothing in the tank. So again, worst case scenario, 5 p.m. people, if they have 5 or 6 p.m., if you haven't eaten since lunch, I would guide in the same way as what I would guide someone at 6 a.m. Hey, if you can stomach a banana half an hour before training, or some sort of carb source, dates, whatever works for you. I'd like you to avoid juice if you can, but sometimes it's a nice easy thing where it's like people don't feel like they have anything in their stomach and they can still apply intensity without feeling like there's something sitting in their stomach undigested. So that's probably where the juice could come in as like a last resort more than anything. After the CrossFit session, again, depending on what time of the day it is, this might change slightly, but I generally try and eat a full balanced meal within 2 to 3 hours after training. If I'm really focusing on recovery, or if I know I've got something else coming up the other day, I might try and eat something sooner. So as an example, trying to get, again, I'll use the 9:30 class just because it's fresh in my mind. I'll have that breakfast before the 9:30 class, about an hour before, that banana within half an hour before, go and do the workout. And then sometime in that hour after the training, I'll try and have what I refer to as my lunch as a balanced meal after that point. That is just going to sustain me across the day, provide my body with the nutrients it needs and the energy it needs for recovery. And then continuing on from there, I would then eat again, generally for me, another balanced meal around 3 or 4 p.m. and then again dinner later on after that. If I know I'm not going to be able to eat straight away after a 9:30 class for whatever reason, I know I can't have lunch till say 1 or 2 o'clock, therefore, the time from 10:30 finishing training until that 1 or 2 o'clock is significantly further. So we're talking 3.5 hours. I would try and make sure I just have something easy to eat and available right after class. So it might be a banana straight after class. It could be a protein shake straight after class. It could be both of those things, so that I'm not leaving myself moving into a state of hunger until that 1 or 2 o'clock time frame. Because what I've found in the past for me is I get to there and I'm starving, and then I'm just looking for anything to eat, and it doesn't necessarily support my goals or provide me with the balanced, filling meal that I might in fact benefit more from. Hello, Grant. I just have electrolytes and creatine before 6 a.m. Is that enough? I eat within 30 minutes after training, though. Sorry if this has been spoken about. Hasn't been spoken about so much. I've mentioned those things, but it is good to have someone identify what they do so we can use that as an example. So nothing wrong with having that at 6 a.m. Again, there's nothing wrong with training fasted. I would say if your goal was to maximize performance, maybe having a little something before you train would be useful. But general day-to-day health, the whole idea of what CrossFit was meant for in terms of just longevity and health and fitness across years of your life, there's nothing wrong with training fasted first thing in the morning and then getting that good balanced meal in as soon as you can afterwards. Whether it be 30 minutes afterwards because you're going straight to work and you've got to eat straight away, or whether it's within that 2 hours afterwards. What you'll find, I think the biggest thing for people to understand, because it is all trial and error and every person is different. If you are finding yourself, your recovery is poor, maybe your sleep's poor, or you're constantly sore after your CrossFit sessions, like day on day on day, as opposed to maybe there's something that that creates your muscles to be more sore than normal, there would be a nutrition factor around that is probably progressing that muscle soreness or general ongoing soreness. There would be a way to minimize that. I might not say necessarily resolve, because again, that would take some trial and error. Eventually it would probably resolve that muscle soreness, but nutrition and diet can take you to that point where that day-to-day training doesn't leave you in a position where you are sore day in, day out, day in, day out. And that's about those balanced meals. At the end of the day, if you can get 3 breakfast, lunch, and dinner balanced meals across the day, you're hitting majority of what your body requires, assuming that you're eating enough to support your activity. You might find if you're in a calorie deficit, you might not be eating enough to support your activity because the goal is weight loss. Therefore, recovery might be limited during that period of time, and performance is certainly slowed or limited during that period of time too. So coming back to Grant, electrolytes and creatine before 6 a.m., nothing wrong with that. Again, because the goal is consistency and longevity across time, I would be saying that is fine. If you know your body performs to the level you want it to, and you've got no fast tracking performance goals that you're looking for in a short space of time, there's nothing wrong with coming to that 6 a.m. class with just electrolytes and creatine, especially if you're getting a good balanced meal afterwards, which is supporting your recovery from that point. Most people will have enough energy left in their muscles from dinner the night before, assuming again, good, balanced, wholesome meal that's full of the right fuel that will take you into that next day. Then following it up with that breakfast afterwards. Again, balance carbs, protein, fat, all of them together to maximize your recovery, to allow you to rinse and repeat day in and day out. We had another question from comments on the YouTube as well from Eilish, Grant and Eilish. Thank you for giving me stuff to talk about. Just bring that one up. I could have cut half of that out, sorry. What do you recommend people eat the night before an event or competition to support them energy-wise through? It depends on the event or competition. and what you've previously done. So the first thing I would say is don't try anything new the day before your event or competition. Have tried it in the lead up to your event or competition. I'm going to take a stab in the dark and think that Eilish might be referring to in preparation for her half marathon, the Bendigo fun run that's coming up. 5K, 10K, and then that half marathon distance. And Eilish has signed up to the half marathon. And so I'm going to just take a stab in the dark and assume that she's referencing, or the example would be using the lead up to that marathon the night before the event or competition to support them energy wise. Now, there was, I remember when I was younger, like carb loading before your big event, and everyone would talk about carb loading before playing netball. Generally, I think the consensus seems to be if your sport is duration longer than an hour, then some additional carb loading might be useful. If your sport duration is lower than an hour, you don't necessarily need to carb load, assuming you've got quite a well-balanced diet throughout the day. So again, carbs, fats, and proteins across the day so that you've got that balanced fuel source so your body's primed and ready to go. The night before your event, don't eat anything new that you don't know how it will sit with your body. So if you're looking for something in particular to go forward with, start practicing it. If you've got a certain day where you run at roughly the same time as the half marathon might be, I'd be saying the night before, if you're looking to try something in the lead up, that your training sessions will be practice time to try that food. I would just say good balanced meal, wholesome foods, balanced with carbs, fat, and protein so that you are well fed the night before, so that you can sleep well the night before, so you can wake up ready to run the way you might normally run on any of your training sessions. If you did want to try anything out the night before, do it in the lead up. Don't wait. If it was a CrossFit comp, like a one-day thing, again, I wouldn't try anything new on the day, but I would have tried out certain things in the lead up. So particularly at a CrossFit competition, maybe there's 3 or 4 events across the day. So it's a bit different to your one regular 1-hour training session. In that case, then I'd be getting you to test out eating some maybe higher GI carbs prior to workouts, e.g. the banana, some sort of bread, the dates, some sort of juice, something like that, to see how your body responds to it as to whether or not it would be a useful fuel source throughout the day at a CrossFit competition. I'd still try and get you, if the timeline of the competition allows, to prioritize getting some whole meals in, or some full balanced meals in. But quite often at a CrossFit competition, you might be going back to back in events every 1 to 2 hours. So it's a little harder to do that. With that in mind, I would be asking you to prioritize that meal the night before and the first meal of the following day to get as much of your nutrients in terms of balance as possible. And then just essentially playing, what's the word I'm looking for? Doing your best across the day to maintain energy levels where you can with what you can, assuming that you've tested these things out and you know that they're not going to affect you in any way. The last thing you want to do is try something brand new in a competition or the night before a competition and wake up feeling worse the next day, or eat it during the competition day and in an hour feeling lethargic, sluggish, whatever it might be that following day. So play around with it first. I would just say for most people, unless you're really hitting the 1% of everything, like you're looking for those 1%, balance throughout the day, throughout the week. Have something that you know is balance meals throughout the day, throughout the week, the day before, the night before, the morning of. Have something that you know that you can, and using the marathon as an example, run after eating. know the timing of that, know how long maybe your body needs for you to feel like you can run with it if you haven't. They would be the things I'd be trying out first. And then allowing yourself the time in the morning to be able to eat that, if that is the case. So if your marathon starts at 6 a.m., you might find it really challenging to eat a full meal prior to that marathon, in which case you'd have to find other sources of food, which would be probably carb dominant at that point, if that are easy to get in at that early in the morning, or choose to perform in a fasted state. If your half marathon is at 9:30 in the morning and eating breakfast at 7:30 isn't a big deal, then I would be asking you to prioritize eating a full balanced meal, maybe slightly more carbs than you have normally, but still looking for them to be slow release, low GI carb sources. Hopefully you find that useful. Probably I've got something to share shortly, but I'll just read this out. Matt Boyle, I never ate prior to a morning workout until recently. I got a big increase in performance since eating before class. Aerobic workouts, normally some rice cakes, honey, and half a banana. And so this is the thing. Matt's a great example because Matt, he's done both things and he can see the difference. He probably notices the difference. Matt trains at 6 a.m., so it can be challenging to eat, but just for example here, or for what Matt does, normally some rice cakes, honey, and half a banana. So I would say, without assuming too much, Matt's done some trial and error, understanding his own type 1 diabetes as well, as to how many rice cakes, how much honey, and how much banana is the most beneficial for him, helps him feel full and energized for the workout without feeling so full that he feels lethargic or like his body can't work at intensity because his digestive system is busy moving things out of its stomach. So it is a lot of trial and error. And I would say, just if you are wondering whether or not you could perform better on food, start small and build. So you might start with half a banana. And when you get comfortable eating half a banana, every now and then you might try a full banana. And again, you got to remember, banana sizes can change too. So it's like Matt might be having half a banana. His banana might be a large banana, which might be the same as having a full small banana. So it is very individualized in terms of that. Matt might have 3 sachets of honey, 1 sachet of honey, depending on, and I'm just going to again make an assumption, depending on what his readings are for his insulin prior to working out too. So it is a lot of trial and error to find what works for you. And then particularly after that point, how hard the workout was can change how much intensity put into that workout, potentially how heavy the loads were in the workout, can then change how much you might need to eat afterwards as well. Some people might have their normal breakfast and then be starving within an hour. Your body has a really good way of telling you whether or not it needs more fuel. But for Matt in particular, never eating prior to working out until recently, and then recognizing an increase in performance since eating before class, because when you have something before you exercise, you are giving your muscles the glucose it needs for its energy, quick acting, fast absorbing, so that you can apply the effort you want to. Like your camera straps, Justin. Awesome new research from Professor Tim Noakes suggests ingesting carbs, glucose, is primarily required to prevent the brain from running out of fuel rather than our muscles. Justin follows up by saying it should say ingesting carbs during sustained 1+ hour efforts. So there's research there. Research shows 10 to 30 grams of carbs per hour was enough to sustain performance. So the research coming out at the moment is that the carbs that you're having prior to that training session is predominantly helping your brain continue to function, to tell your muscles to continue to function. If we removed your brain from your body and just worked with the glucose that was available in your muscles, this is the assumption based off what they're saying, your muscles would have the fuel it needs to push at that intensity. The glucose is actually supporting your brain in being able to understand and send those signals to your muscles. I think that's my assumption. That's how I've understood that so far. So if Justin thinks that I'm wrong in understanding that, he can comment in there. But going back to ingesting carbs for 1 hour plus efforts, research shows 10 to 30 grams of carbs per hour is more than enough for sustained performance. And anything more than that is just telling your brain, hey, you've got this, more so than providing your muscles with increased fuel and energy. So that's where it's an interesting thing. So when we did high rocks, it was quite surprising to see. So high rocks, depending on who you are and what category you're doing and whatever it might be, how fast you can run, essentially, anywhere from just under an hour for those elites to an hour and a half, maybe pushing towards 2 hours, depending on the category you've signed up in. And it was really interesting at the High Rocks in Melbourne, watching quite a large number of people supplementing their race with a gel at the rowing station in an event that is a touch over an hour long. So realistically, somewhere along the line, someone's told them that that's good for performance. However, is it just something that they've gotten used to doing and it actually doesn't change their performance whatsoever? Or is it something that they've tried and tested and it is supporting their performance? I think there's a big, what would the best way to describe this? So sorry, it would be nice to have this conversation backwards and forwards with someone. I think that it's just become normal to have gels, because the industry says for every 45 minutes of effort that you do, a gel is required to sustain your energy. And then it's kind of this like accepted, like, I'm 45 minutes in, so I'll have a gel. I'm 45 minutes in, so I'll have a gel. But I don't think it's actually that necessary for things, for example, like high rocks, where maybe you're done in an hour and 15 minutes. The triathlons that we do in Bendigo are generally around that sort of 1 hour to 1 hour 10 mark. So it's like, is it necessary to have a gel in something that is just a touch over an hour? Of course, going back to Matt as an example, if he needs to manage his blood glucose levels, then absolutely it is going to be essential for him to manage that. But again, how much is required? And for each person, trial and error to get through to work out what works best for them. Justin, blood glucose dips and you get exercise-induced hypoglycemia rather than the muscles running out of glycogen. Exercise-induced hypoglycemia, which just means when blood sugar drops below 70 mg/dL, milligrams, whatever the DL stands for. Where are the allied health people out there? During or after physical activity, due to increased glucose consumption by the muscles, often causing symptoms like shakiness, dizziness, and fatigue. So not necessarily a case of the muscles don't have the glycogen they need to work, but rather your brain getting worried that it's going to end up in hypoglycemia. I think I'm understanding this correctly. And therefore responding well to a gel or a carb or whatever it might be in that moment. So the brain is the thing that's getting the benefit more so than the muscles needing the gel for the benefit. So interesting thought there. What was I going to say? I posed the question to Justin yesterday because this had me thinking further. are people who are sucking down gels in events that are only just over, say, an hour long, or even in their 60-minute whatever sessions they might be, pushing their body towards being reliant on that glucose and therefore causing insulin resistance from their body, because their body gets used to being provided with that hit. So this would be, this is the question I pose for people that don't have type 1 diabetes, because I think this is essentially what's happening with type 1 diabetes. The body can't produce enough insulin to allow you to, I wish Matt was on here to explain this better for me. My concern with people who don't have type 1 diabetes who suck down gels during training sessions is that they're training their body not to produce or tolerate or use what's available in that moment, because they're getting this hit of glucose from these gels. And by default, and the question I'm posing is that causing people to become more insulin resistant than they potentially would be? That's my question. I need someone very smart to help me unpack and understand that. What else was I going to show today? I would like to share go through the level 1 training guide, so the CrossFit methodology at some point, but I have to work out how to get my computer to share my preview on here, and it won't do it unless it's on a web browser page. So that's something for the future to go through. If there are no other questions in there, I might call it there. I hope that I helped with some answers today. If you're a smart nutrition science person and you happen to listen to this and you heard my proposal about, is the body becoming insulin resistant by using too many carbs or gel sources in shorter duration training or exercise? It would be an interesting, yeah, I'm no scientist, but I'd like someone to explain that in more detail and talk about that in terms of, is that possible? Could that be happening to people without them realizing, because it's quite common and normal for society to accept having gels in these sessions is essential to performance? Or are we diminishing performance by providing our body with that without training it to perform to its best without it? I don't know if that makes sense, but that's my thought process. Be interesting to see. One day we might find out. If there are no other comments or questions, thanks Justin, Lucky Camera Straps, Matt, Eilish for your previous question, Grant for coming in to the chat as well, and Ree for one of your questions also. I'll just jump back to Ree quickly. Just make sure you're eating enough to fuel everything that you're doing. Training can be an appetite suppressant. So often the more we train, the less hungry we are, just because by doing more exercise, our appetite does get suppressed, but it doesn't mean that we don't need energy and fuel to continue to do the activity and recover and eventually perform. So I'll leave it at that. Unless there's something else, thanks so much for listening. If you like, if you wouldn't mind, like and subscribe. If you've already done both of those things, I thank you for taking the time to listen.